How's it going, guys? This is my first video of a part of a larger series, and I'm going to teach you everything there is to know about web development. So, basically, what software engineers do on the daily when working, from HTML to CSS to JavaScript to frameworks like React or to extensions like APIs. Basically, I want to teach you everything you need to know so you're going to be able to build awesome websites or contribute to large projects. And basically, you're going to know how to code by the end of this series, because I know it can be pretty intimidating to program. You might not know where to start. You might not know how this one feature is made, and that can be pretty stressful if you don't know what you're doing. So a little bit about me as a developer before we start. I've been programming for almost 3 years now. I started programming with Roblox and making Roblox games, and then I transitioned to making Discord bots, and then after that I did a little bit of cybersecurity and hacking, and now I make websites, I make desktop apps, I make mobile apps, and basically that kind of stuff is what I'm going to be teaching you, or specifically in this series, teaching you how to build great websites. So let's get started on the first topic. And I think this is probably the most important video if you don't know how to code at all, is basically knowing what a div is. So a div, as Mozilla Firefox puts it, which is the creator of HTML, the div element is the generic container for flow content. It has no effect on the content or layout until styled in some way using CSS. E.g., styling is directly applied to it, or some kind of layout model like Flexbox is applied to its parent element. So basically what they're trying to say is a div is a container that holds different elements that you use when you code. So for example, a div would be the thing that holds a paragraph, or the thing that holds an image or a button. Basically, when you use pieces of code for your website, you're going to have a div that's wrapped around it that holds the elements, that holds the text, that holds the image, that holds the button. Everything is going to be inside the div. So if I show you an example here, so take a look at this. What do you notice from this image? Well, what I see is two divs. So this is the first div, and this is the second div. This first div holds this paragraph, that holds this piece of text. So this paragraph belongs to div 1. And this paragraph, or this piece of text, belongs to div 2. This belongs to div 2. And notice how these paragraphs, they're both different from each other. And that's the purpose that the div serves. You can have paragraphs put inside divs, but if you want those paragraphs to be different from each other, or you want those buttons and images to be different from each other, and you want to style your code to make your website look some type of way, then you would use divs to help serve that purpose. And so for this episode, I'm going to be recreating this image with you guys right here. So here I've pulled up index HTML file, and I have a CSS file. You don't need to know every single line of code that goes into this styles.css file, but basically what this does, it gives the div its red color here, and it gives the inner div its blue color here, and it gives the brown color to the text. Basically, it styles the different elements that we put into our HTML code. So going back to this indexed HTML file, here I'm using a boilerplate to write the code. Basically, it's the setup that allows me to have the CSS that I apply to my code. But you don't need to worry about that right now, and I'll teach you that in the future. But let's go and start by creating our outer div. Let's call this class outer div. And inside this outer div, I'm going to have a paragraph that says hello world. So here we have our outer div and we have hello world on the inside of the hello world. So here in this picture we have the outer div and then we have the text hello world on the inside of that. And now that I wrote this in my index.html code, as you can see, oh, I misspelled that. As you can see, we have our red outer div right here, and inside of that is hello world. So now we're halfway done. Let's go make the inside div that is inside this outer div, and then that is going to have the text I am inside. So here we will create the inner div, and inside that we'll have the paragraph I am inside. So theoretically, this image should look like this, and that's perfect. Now we have our outer div, that inside that outer div has hello world, and inside this outer div is another div, the inner div, and inside that inner div we have the paragraph I am inside. So that basically sums up what divs are, and as a bonus, let's see it in actual practice or like a real website. If we go to discord.com, for example, and we click on the first thing using the inspect tool, you'll notice that here we have this div, hero text, or here we have this div that's called hero text. You don't need to worry about what class is and what this is. This is CSS that I'll teach you in later episodes. But here, basically, we have this div that contains the entire imagine a place and the text on the inside, and inside that div is another div that contains the separate where you can belong to a school club. Notice how imagine a place isn't inside this div, but it's inside the main div. And basically that sums up what divs are. Okay, so cool. You guys have finished your first video and are one step closer to becoming an actual developer. Any questions in the comments, guys, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll go over some more topics.